More than any other election in recent history, this is a battle for Sweden's soul. Often idealised as a model society, Sweden is now divided between those who want it to remain generous, egalitarian and open to foreigners, and others who vigorously oppose immigration and multiculturalism. Gustav Kasselstrand heads one of the most extreme right-wing parties that advocates mass deportations.
We have the Swedes on our side, and with our healthy political ideas, we are starting a new phase, a renaissance in Sweden.
For one face in the crowd, this election has become personal. He's a 23-year-old refugee from the Syrian city of Homs. Abed al-Muqabel left Syria when he was 17, before he could finish his high school education. In September 2015, we met Abed at this mosque in Izmir on the Turkish coast, where hundreds gathered before taking rubber dinghies to the Greek islands en route to northern Europe.
I'm planning to go to Sweden. If I study there, I'm willing to give Europe back what they gave me. To give them back what they gave me. They gave me shelter. I gave them back my whole energy to build their country.
Abed managed to reach Sweden before the refugee trail to northern Europe was closed. Since then, he's almost finished his high school education and did so in Swedish. He has 2 jobs to pay for his tuition fees. He does not receive welfare benefits. He hopes to study psychology at university, but fears the rise of the right will thwart his ambitions.
The anti-immigrant parties are trying to sell the people that the Muslims, which are the majority of the immigrants that have sought asylum in Sweden, that they are trying to invade the country, that the Muslims have organized and are planning to invade the country, that the Swedish traditional culture is under attack, which is completely false, not true.
The party Abed was protesting against may only be on the fringes of the campaign, but what's significant is that until recently, supporters of the so-called alt-right were shy about airing their opinions. Now, being anti-immigration is no longer taboo.
Oh, it costs a lot because they don't work very much. I mean, they have very low percentage work if you compare to Swedes. The Swedes pay the taxes, and welfare is free for everybody, and now the left who has been screaming here say, no, people is illegal. I mean, what kind of language is that?
At the peak of the European crisis, 163,000 refugees and migrants made it to Sweden, encouraged by the government's offer of sanctuary for Syrians.
398, 399, very big family.
But it wasn't just Syrians who came. There were asylum seekers from across the developing world, lured by the prospect of subsidized housing and generous welfare benefits. The city of Malmö in the south was a particular magnet. Sweden hoped that other European countries would follow its example. The then Migration Minister Morgan Johansson was frustrated that many EU partners closed their borders instead.
What do you say to those people who think that your immigration policy, your open door policy, is naive?
Just turn on your television set and see for yourselves what these people are fleeing from.
As Sweden found itself overwhelmed by the influx, it sealed its formerly open border with Denmark to the south to try to stem the flow. It was like closing the stable door after the horse had bolted, say those on the right, like the Alternative for Sweden's Gustav Kasselstrand.
The politicians have forced policy upon us with mass immigration that we have never ever voted for, never ever supported.
Prime Minister Stefan Löfven presided over the influx, which has strained the hallowed welfare system and changed Sweden to the point where 1 in 4 of the population now comes from a foreign background. His centre-left Social Democrat Party advocates high taxation to pay for the cradle-to-grave safety net.
If we can continue 4 more years, at least 4 more years, we will continue to invest in the Swedish welfare system, and that is what people need now. We need to build solidarity and trust between the citizens of Sweden, and that's what we want to do.
This is a Social Democrat campaign video.
What I would like a society where safety comes before tax relief, so that we can afford to hire more people in our medical care sector.
This is actually a referendum about the Swedish welfare system because...
But isn't it also a referendum on immigration?
No, it's not about crime.
It is perhaps telling that the Prime Minister responds to a question about immigration with an answer about crime. On the day he was in Malmö, violence raised its ugly head. Superintendent Glenn Sjögren is based in Rosengård, Malmö's biggest ghetto. We're on our way to a murder scene in a neighbouring ghetto. Hundreds of gang members are fighting for control of the lucrative cannabis and cocaine trade. According to the police, almost all of those involved have immigrant backgrounds.
This year, so far, 11 homicides and shootings involved.
For many Swedes, the gang war symbolises a failure of integration. It fuels resentment against immigrants. The latest victim was 20 years old. He was killed next to a local mosque. The fact that rivals are killing each other is of little comfort because the number of shootings is on the rise and often there's crossfire.
My name is Jimmie Åkesson, and I will do everything in my power to solve this chaos that you Social Democrats and you Liberals have created.
Jimmie Åkesson is benefiting most from Sweden's growing sense of insecurity. He leads yet another far-right party, the anti-immigrant Sweden Democrats. The party has neo-Nazi origins, but it's jettisoned its more extreme policies and members who espouse openly racist views. Despite becoming more mainstream, the Sweden Democrats are widely regarded as pariahs. In one election video, Åkesson paints an apocalyptic image of Sweden that critics say whips up the climate of fear.
Mass immigration hasn't paid off. We know that today. And we know that in reality, it inflicts enormous costs and a huge burden on our society. You have created a Sweden where families are forced to move because they no longer feel safe in their own homes.
One reason why the right is gaining ground is that many working and middle-class voters have abandoned the centre-left Social Democrats because they believe the party ignored their concerns over immigration. According to the latest opinion polls, the centre-left Social Democrats of Prime Minister Löfven are going to get the most votes, but not enough for him to form a government outright, and so he's going to have to try to form a coalition. Although the right-wing Sweden Democrats are on course to become the second biggest party, the Prime Minister has made it absolutely clear that he will do everything he can to prevent them from having any influence.
For me, one thing is very clear: no cooperation or dependence on the Sweden Democrats.
That's ignoring a large percentage, perhaps, of the Swedish people who have those views, isn't it?
This is a party with values so far from mine. They do not protect that each individual has the same human value. They speak bad about minorities. They threaten media. This is a party this is not just another party. This is an extreme party.
A party with some unexpected support. Nima Gholam Ali Pour is a rare creature. He's both a refugee and candidate for the Sweden Democrats. His parents fled from Iran 30 years ago to save his brother from being conscripted as a child soldier. Despite the Prime Minister's stance, Ali Pour is convinced the voice of his party's supporters will be heard.
A lot of political parties said they would never change in the migration issue, and they change overnight. So we will see after the election, they need a government that functions. And if we get a lot of support, they need support in the parliament. So they have to seek our support somehow.
If the right wing does as well as expected, this will herald a substantial shift in the foundations of a traditionally social democratic society. It'll provide a warning to the rest of Europe's liberal elite. If it can happen in cosy little Sweden, it can happen to you. Ignore the working class at your peril.